And now, stand-up community subscribers and listeners from around the globe, it's time to Stand Up with Pete Dominic, where we ask the important questions that impact you, your family, and your community. Such as, would my uncle's new special gaming chair also cure his debilitating hemorrhoids? And with COVID cases piling up and ERs everywhere, is it past time for me to douse my gaping dog bite wound in vodka? Wow. And now, the podcast host who would only ever cauterize his wounds with the finest Kentucky bourbon available, Pete Dominic.
Thank you very much, Pete Co., and thank you for turning on the show, everybody. I am very happy to have you because today you get to listen to my interview with police officer from Capitol Police, Harry Dunn, who I caught up with for the first time yesterday. Had a wonderful conversation, really great getting to know him. I think you're going to enjoy it, be inspired by it, and I hope to meet him in person and continue our conversation here. That's coming up. But so much to talk about here on the news, mostly related to the Omicron variants taking over, sweeping the nation with illness, catching up with so many of us who are somehow able to, lucky enough, to avoid it up until now, and affecting the economy and pretty much every system that we rely upon, at least for the next several weeks. So let's get to it right now. I've got your news. Time for the last 24. All right, folks, as you know, I talk to experts here on the program each and every day, usually two. Today, I've just got Harry Dunn, but I'll be joined by Dr. Aaron Carroll later this week. Still trying to catch up with Dr. Peter Hotez. Of course, talked to Dr. Arthur Kaplan yesterday, and I'm always reading and playing the experts on this segment as well. And smart cousin Darcy, who's pretty much an everyday listener, told me I should be following and subscribing to this epidemiologist named Caitlin Jetalina. She has a great Substack called State of Affairs. I highly recommend you subscribe to it, and I'm going to try to get her on the program as well. But she writes in her January 3rd newsletter, "Did you blink? If so, you may have missed Omicron springboard us into hyperdrive tsunami of cases. For the first time during the pandemic, the world reported more than 1 million confirmed cases per day. Omicron leaders like Denmark and the UK haven't peaked yet, and other places are just starting their wave, like Australia and India. Interestingly, South Africa is taking longer to descend than they took to ascend, which is something to keep an eye on. United States reported a 204% increase in cases in the past 14 days. Our 7-day average equals 405,470 new cases each day. As a comparison, last winter, we peaked at 247,000 cases per day. And while the national picture doesn't look good, it doesn't give hotspots justice. In the Northeast, previous waves are merely a blip on the radar now. New York has the highest case rate in the United States at staggering 308 cases per 100,000, followed by D.C. and New Jersey. The islands have the fastest acceleration in the nation. U.S. Virgin Islands, followed by Puerto Rico. States in the South closely follow: Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia. And time will tell how Delta's infection-induced immunity holds up in these previously hard-hit areas. So as you can see, she's making all kinds of points based on data. She's got tons of charts in every single issue of her newsletter. And then she, of course, adds that official case rates have been an underestimate throughout the pandemic. But now we've got reason to believe they're particularly underreported because of very high test positivity rates across the nation. And then some people can't find tests. Some tests are testing at home and positives aren't officially reported. I think we heard Dr. Kaplan say that yesterday. And then, of course, we have a lot of asymptomatic transmission. But did you know that you can test the sewage and predict where we are going? And she writes about that as well, because she says if we look at Boston sewage, the true case number is very high because you can't hide the COVID in your poop. But there's a lot to say about a lesser severity with this variant. And of course, many people are vaccinated and boosted at this point, but she goes on to write about hospitalization and then disruptions. And disruptions is what I wanted to talk about with you today. She says we're starting to see the highly transmissible variant impact almost everything else in our community, too. food supply, agriculture, grocery stores, truck drivers, travel, air, train, bus, essential services, healthcare, emergency services, and education, teachers, bus drivers, and more. And the number of healthcare workers out sick with COVID-19 continues to increase. Of course, a strong and resilient health system, she writes, is crucial not only for treating the onslaught of COVID-19, but for many other concerns, too. And then she tweets out anecdotal evidence from a doctor on the front line who said, "Today I told 2 patients with metastatic colorectal cancer I have to postpone their liver resections next week. One broke down and cried in her arms. I feel like I failed them. Please get vaccinated and wear a mask to stay out of the hospital." So let's talk, though, just about the schools, because now we're arguing about that. A database she references of K-12 schools across the nation has updated their data, just recently found the 2022 year isn't off to a great start, as many of you are telling me right now, for your schools are getting shut down around the nation. Many schools in places like New York City are closed this week due to staffing shortages. Schools in Seattle are delaying reopening so students can test for COVID-19 before returning. Other schools, like in Atlanta, are temporarily going virtual, and schools in Iowa were canceled because of a lack of bus drivers. So that's the question. I totally understand and have empathy for anybody who will have to suffer serious consequences. And I think that's a lot of people if schools shut down again because they can't go to work or because their kid hates it and it's terrible for them. I mean, some kids, my daughters don't seem to care that much because I think they can find answers easier. And they're watching their phones, they're chatting with their friends. It's just not as boring to them to some extent. But everybody knows it's bad for learning. I don't think anybody's making the argument that it's better for either the teachers or the kids. But I mean, I think anybody is entitled to their opinion and whatever their experience is when the schools shut down, how that affects their lives. But if I'm specifically, again, talking about the schools, the arguments that are being made right now are hard to understand. And I'm sorry for getting all pitchy and high noted here. I'm obviously exasperated by this argument. If there are no bus drivers to bring your kids to school, how are they going to get there? Should we parents organize some kind of Dunkirk boat lift or airlift or carpool of some sort? And if we do, won't all of the volunteer parents get sick as well? And I wrote about this in a Facebook post I'll share with you. But first, I want to play a Republican congressman named Mike Gallagher. He represents the 8th District of Wisconsin. Here he is making this stupid argument, which I want to respond more to on the other side.
We cannot shut down schools again. This was our biggest blunder. And shame on us if we repeat it again. We can't afford to inject that fear into our kids' classrooms or allow them to fall further behind. And I'm sorry, but remote learning is not a substitute, especially for young kids. Remote learning is a euphemism for school shutdowns, and that is a recipe for student failure. Sitting in front of a screen all day is not learning. And we have schools in Wisconsin that are now shutting down again. We have Milwaukee public schools shutting down. Same with Madison. I heard reports of Racine. Thankfully, not yet in Northeast Wisconsin. But, by the way, when it comes to remote learning, talk about a policy that punishes the poor relative to the rich. Rich people can do remote work. Rich people can run away to their cottages or their beach houses with a bunch of iPads and high-speed internet. And they can probably hire private tutors to make up for learning loss. But while they're sitting there wondering who stocks the shelves at the local Whole Foods, but working class people have to work in person, and their kids need to be in school, in person, with teachers and with other students. Not even Biden's education secretary wants to shut schools down at this point because he recognizes how bad of an impact it's had on our kids.
You stupid son of a bitch. Nobody wants to shut down the schools. Nobody. There is no strong. Only the kids who hate school. They're the only ones. They're not that many. They would rather go to school probably than stay home all day at this point. Nobody wants to live in fear. It's such a ridiculous argument for him also to say that was our biggest blunder. Of course it wasn't. We didn't have vaccinations. You know how many more millions of people would have died if you had just left the schools open? Nobody's making the argument that kids are learning better from home. And this, oh my gosh, it hurts the poor people even worse. For the love of God, a Republican making that argument, suddenly concerned about poor folks and their education and their economic opportunities, is just too much to take. But still, my question remains, and maybe this whole time you've been yelling at me because perhaps I'm missing something. But again, I posted this in my community and on my Facebook page. And of course, I want to ask you and say it simply that there's been quite a bit of concern over schools shutting down again. I'm honestly confused about it, I wrote. Most of the adults who open, operate, and teach at the schools can't come to work because they're too sick. Then what are we supposed to do? What solutions are there in this potential situation? This sucks for everyone, but constantly laying blame and trying to be divisive about it doesn't help. This is an honest question. If there are no adults in the schools because they're too sick to come, if they have this contagious viral disease, how can we send our kids to them? If there aren't enough bus drivers, cafeteria workers, much less teachers, I mean, what are we supposed to do? We organize in a carpool? Does anybody know how to run the boiler, teach algebra? Who wants to clean the bathrooms? Not me. That's the question I asked, and that's where I'm looking for an argument. And the only thing I'm really hearing is people saying that you should be allowed or even, I guess, forced to go to work, even if you're sick, because you're not that sick. A lot of people that are vaccinated, for example, are not so sick that they can't go to work. And that's the best argument. And it's a terrible argument on moral and public health grounds. It's a terrible argument, but that's the only thing I've seen so far. I look forward to hearing what you have to say about it. And now here's another terrible piece of commentary from another leader. This is the new mayor, Eric Adams, who I got really upset by this comment as well as did so many others. Here he is yesterday.
When a mayor has swagger, the city has swagger. We've allowed people to beat us down so much that all we did was wallow in COVID. That's all we did. And we no longer believed. This is a city of swagger. This is a city of resiliency. And all of these messages out there of what is going to happen, we're going to survive.
Yeah, I have no idea what that guy's talking about. We allowed us to be beaten down. Who beat us down? How do we allow it? We allowed ourselves to wallow in what? What are you talking about? New Yorkers didn't wallow. They worked together. They fought together. They died together. I mean, what the fuck? That was so deeply offensive to anybody who's been on the front line, to anybody who got really sick. How is this inspiring? How does it solve anything? Ali Mistal tweeted about that. He said, meanwhile, the mayor's plan is swagger. We're going to beat a fucking virus with attitude and good cheer. The whole point of what I've been trying to make in this first part of the show today is you got to have solutions. We're all scared. We're all upset. We're all concerned. But we have to have solutions. We have to have policy ideas. And there are trade-offs. And we have learned over the last almost 3 years, no good answers. There's a lot of bad answers. So you have to deal with the problem that you have, not ignore it, and not the problem that you want. And that's just reality, and that's the end of my speech. Sorry. I think one thing that really does make a difference is Tommy John underwear, however. Go to TommyJohnUnderwear.com/standup and feel differently about all of this. All right, let's go to the governor of New York, who is now the governor thanks to Andrew Cuomo, former lieutenant governor, Kathy Hochul yesterday.
We're not in a good place. I'm going to be really honest with you. This is the winter surge we predicted. We know that particularly after families gathered December 25th over that weekend, another weekend holiday we just completed with New Year's, there's a lot of human interaction. And what happens when humans gather? They spread the virus. And we fully anticipate, on top of the surge that's already been ongoing, that there's going to be another wave that's occurring as a result of these holidays.
All right, Kathy Hochul giving it to us straight right there in that press conference yesterday. And because I played the new epidemiologist referred to me by my cousin, smart cousin Darcy, we're going to call her, I'm going ahead and playing Scott Gottlieb. She said less Gottlieb and more of her epidemiologist. I say it's like hers, like she has her own, the one that she is referring to, Dr. Caitlin Jetalina at State of Affairs. Anyway, because of that, I do have Scott Gottlieb on CNBC with Betsy Quick yesterday.
Thanks, too. There's so much confusion and so much unknown about what to do at this point. What do you tell people? What do you tell schools? What do you tell parents?
Yeah, look, the first thing I'd say is that, and we've said this before, so I appreciate there's diminished credibility, but this is not going to last very long. We're going to be in the throes of this wave of infection for maybe a month. Here in the Northeast, I think you're going to see infections peak out within the next 2 weeks. So hopefully New York City does find a peak within the next 2 weeks. London, which is about 2 to 3 weeks behind New York City, has already peaked and is probably on the way down. So this is a very fast-moving wave of infection. On the back end of this, hopefully we're done with COVID for a while. We'll have enough immunity in the population between vaccination or infections. So we really need to get through this month.
Well, what do you think of that, smart cousin Darcy? Is he right? What do you guys think of what Scott Gottlieb just said on CNBC? It's Becky Quick. Did I say Betsy Quick? My fake producer corrected me in my ear. Okay, well, one more clip that I want to share with you related to COVID and a whole bunch more headlines related to it. But last night on CNN, we went out in front. We went out front with Erin Burnett, and she had CNN medical analyst Dr. Jonathan Reiner on. He was none too impressed with the very controversial Florida Surgeon General, Dr. Joseph Ladapo, who made some controversial remarks yesterday about testing and vaccines. Let's go to the clip.
When it comes to this testing question, I want to play something the Florida Surgeon General said just today, Dr. Reiner.
We're going to be working to unwind the sort of testing psychology that our federal leadership has managed to, unfortunately, get most of the country in over the last 2 years. We need to unwind this testing sort of planning and living one's life around testing. So, it's really time for people to be living, to make the decisions they want regarding vaccination, to enjoy the fact that many people have natural immunity.
Dr. Reiner, I mean, he does express what I think a lot of people may feel, right? Which is, why am I testing all the time when I'm not symptomatic, I'm not sick, I'm vaccinated, and all of a sudden I'm told I have to stay out of work? Does he have a point? And if not, why?
No. And in fact, it's hard to believe those comments came from the Surgeon General of one of the largest states in this country. And his words echo what the former president of the United States, Donald Trump, said in June of 2020 when he told a huge crowd in Tulsa, Oklahoma, that the downside to testing is that you find so many cases, and that he told his people to slow the testing down, please. Mm-hmm. Right? The problem isn't that testing is finding people who are fine. The problem is that we don't have enough tests. And then if we're looking to do, and I completely agree with Dr. Offit, to keep our schools open, one of the major things you would do is test even more. To find people, find kids, find teachers who are positive, isolate them for a few days and keep the rest of the school open. The problem is that when you have so much virus in the community and you're trying to keep businesses open without testing, you're allowing the virus to continue to spread unabated. So if anything, we need to do much more testing, not bury our heads in the sands of Florida and hope for the best.
There you go on CNN last night. I thought that was really good from Dr. Jonathan Reiner, dinging the Florida Surgeon General, who is a jackass, I think it's fair to say. All right, well, those are all the clips I have for you on COVID, but just a couple of other COVID-related headlines. I guess you could say this one is Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was suspended from Twitter because she had her fifth strike, apparently, with some kind of COVID misinformation. And just a day later, she went on the right-wing Twitter alternative. It's like Getter or something. Getter, I don't know how that's pronounced. And she's demanding to have her Twitter account reinstated, but on a different social media platform. And all of her new followers on the conservative Twitter, Getter, are you still with me? They didn't like it. They bashed her own followers and supporters, calling her needy. Because she went on and said Twitter forgot about the 2 times they accidentally suspended my account this year. That means I've only had 3 strikes in their 5-strike system. Twitter must reinstate my account immediately. And people didn't like that. They said, don't post things like this. It makes you needy. Another one said, why bother? Twitter's full of sheep. Just leave that shit show and support conservative media outlets. We, the people, need to replace leftist thought control wherever it is. Another wrote, begging Twitter to reinstate your account is beneath you. She's also apparently suspended by Facebook, although maybe she wasn't. I'm confused about whether or not she's been suspended by Facebook. She said she was, but Facebook said she wasn't, is the last I read. And I'm not going to look that up. Apparently, Howard Stern was criticizing Oprah for having dinner parties during COVID. I don't know exactly what he said, but I read that headline. The View, the show on ABC, is going remote because Whoopi Goldberg now has COVID. The Secretary of Defense, Lloyd Austin, has COVID. Great interview and worth hearing, especially when it seems like he might have forgotten the senator's name. And I think that was posed that way on Twitter and on sites like Mediaite. But I'm not sure he forgot the senator from Virginia's name as much as he did not want to say his name to protect his concerns that might have been shared privately. I think he just messed this up, but some people are saying he forgot Mark Warner. I don't think that's the case. You can decide for yourself. Here it is, worth listening to.
Very quickly, one last person, and this was somebody who you knew well, a friend of yours, the great Harry Reid, who I know will lie in state very soon in the Capitol, my non-related namesake. He said on this show the following. He said, the country is better off having a real democracy, not a fake democracy. 60% is not a democracy. He said very clearly, later on in the year, get rid of the filibuster. It's nothing. As Barack Obama said at John Lewis's funeral, it's part of the leftovers from the days of slave owners. You've got to get rid of it. It's very bad. Can you tell us any evidence that Manchin or Sinema has given publicly or to you that they care more about voting rights and the democracy continuing than about the filibuster? Because I haven't seen any evidence that they actually have more support for voting rights and democracy than they do for the filibuster.
Yeah. What I can tell you this is they have made even public statements that, particularly Manchin, that he wants to get voting rights done and wants to figure out a way to do it.
But why should we believe that? Why should we believe that? They haven't taken any action.
Well, we got to keep pressing them and pressing them and pressing them until they do. There is too much at risk here. If obviously they were saying yes to us, we wouldn't have to worry about this. But we do have to worry, and we have to keep pushing. But when senators go to them and say, I will lose my election unless we do something about voting rights, when senators come to them and say, we will not have a democracy anymore, not just for 2 years, but for 10 years, and constant senators of all different stripes, including some of our most moderate senators. We have a group of 3 senators who's constantly talking to them, Angus King, John Tester, and the senator from Virginia as well, saying to them, we were not for changing the rules, but we've changed our mind. Too much is at stake. And it's a constant discussion. And we're going to keep going until we succeed. I can't tell you that they've publicly said anything. You know they haven't. I know they haven't. But there's lots of things we're pushing hard on. I don't want to be Pollyanna-ish here. This is an uphill fight, but it's too important to give up on. Right. Too important to give up on.
All right. Well, that is the lay of the land right now in terms of the status of the filibuster. I thought that was a great job by Joy Reid with Chuck Schumer. Now, here's a terrible job. This is the always awful Jesse Waters. Just a terrible guy. I only play this because he gives away the game. And I mean, not like anybody didn't know this, but him saying, Fox News, it's our job to drive people on the left crazy is just more evidence that that's what that network is there to do. And he just said it out loud. So if you don't mind suffering along with me, as Jesse Waters gives away the game.
Listen, if I was a member of the squad, I would want federalizing elections, socialized medicine, tax hikes, gun grabbing, the Green New Deal. Joe hasn't given me that because he's been blocked by the courts, the Constitution, and Joe Manchin. But he's met him halfway. He's given him open borders and reckless spending. They're still not happy. They want 100% of their agenda. They want total control over your life. People in the audience have probably dated other people like that, and we know how painful that can be. But do I feel sorry for Joe Biden? No. I work at Fox. I want to see disarray on the left. It's good for America. It's good for our ratings. I want to see this guy primaried by rich liberals, crazy liberals, so much so that they can hit the threshold to pop the debate. So he has to argue with communists about whether they're going to fund solar panel slavery reparations.
Which squad member would you like to see run against him?
Oh, AOC comes to mind.
Yeah, I'm sure. Whoa, what a weird, awkward, gross groan by Greg Gutfeld, who I used to work with all the time, and don't believe for a second that he believes much of what he says, but it certainly has worked to make him a very popular personality over there on the Fox News. All right, well, let me change gears on you again and just mention a few of the other headlines from yesterday, including that for the first time, a woman who reported being terrorized by Ashley Babbitt is speaking out. You know, Ashley Babbitt, the woman who was the QAnon follower who was shot at the Capitol by a Capitol police officer. Well, her past apparently tells a more complex story. I read the Associated Press story, but it's pretty crazy. She attacked a woman who she was having an affair with this woman's husband, and she drove into her and rammed her car into her like several times, Ashley Babbitt did. And it was very ugly. And there's a lot more to learn about who she is. President Trump endorsed Hungary's strongman, Prime Minister Viktor Orban, called him a powerful and wonderful job, which is a weird phrasing and a terrible thing to do because, of course, Viktor Orban is an authoritarian autocrat who's destroyed democracy there in Hungary. But the big headline yesterday was that the New York Attorney General, Letitia James, has subpoenaed Ivanka Trump and Donald Trump Jr. for her ongoing civil investigation into the Trump organization's finances. The New York Times obtained a court filing saying that the former president, Donald Trump, his two children were served early in December. And this comes now after Trump moved to sue the Attorney General of New York, claiming her investigation in his company's alleged financial fraud is a violation of his constitutional rights. Well, that didn't work out. That got thrown out of the court. And now they're trying to block the investigators who are seeking a deposition from the former president and his children. ABC News reports that Ivanka and Don Jr. are refusing to comply with the subpoenas. I think that's where we're at. And I'm going to be digging into that with guests probably later this week and reading more about it and what it means. That is the investigation I think a lot of folks are following, as is the one in the Manhattan District Attorney's Office as well, now led by a new guy because Cy Vance is gone. But before I go to my interview with Harry Dunn, I want to just play this 4-minute segment. More great reporting from CNN's Donny O'Sullivan. He was on CNN with Anderson Cooper last night, and he went out and interviewed Trump supporters in Florida mostly. And some of his reporting you'll hear in this 4-minute clip is also from the day in Washington at the actual insurrection on January 6th. I think it was really interesting, and it's, these are not the majority of Americans that believe this, but it's a frighteningly large percentage, and it's, I think, important to hear them. I really do. Just a little bit, not all the time, and if they're your friends and neighbors and you hear it all the time, I'm sorry for playing this, but I think it's worth it. CNN's Donny O'Sullivan on the case.
January 6th attack was not the Republicans nor Trump. It was the Democrats were behind it all. They're the ones that caused it all.
Do you really believe that?
I know it. And there is no way that a Republican would act that way. And there is no way that Trump had anything to do with what happened on January 6th.
But what about all the Trump supporters that have been charged and indicted?
Because it's all Democratic judges and people that were on the take from the Democrats.
It's been a year since the attack on the U.S. Capitol. And because of disinformation, denial, and diversion, Americans don't have a shared history, a shared understanding of what happened here on that day.
I think the whole reporting of it is a giant hoax. We are very peaceful people. So it was a total setup. To me, it was the FBI had set it up. I don't believe that they were Trump supporters that did that.
You said the whole thing's a setup. You don't really believe that, do you?
I do. Because Trump won the election. They've proven it over and over again.
I really don't think Trump had much to do with it than people that were supporters for him. Some were involved, but I think they were enticed by the FBI and by undercover agents.
When I spoke to Trump supporters here in Washington on January 6th, most were in denial about the results of the 2020 election. Do you accept that Biden won the election?
Absolutely not. Biden did not win this election.
On January 6th, we walked with Trump supporters who marched from the White House, where Trump was doing his speech, here to the U.S. Capitol. And as we arrived here, that is when the first security barrier was breached. At the time, some Trump supporters told me they were happy with what happened here at the Capitol. Are you proud of what happened here today?
Absolutely. I think we should have gone on in and yanked our senators out by the hair of the head and drug them out and said, no more.
I'm absolutely stand behind 100% what happened here today. 1,000%. I think it's terrible how this election was stolen.
Federal prosecutors have charged more than 700 people in connection with the Capitol riot and repeatedly documented the rioters' support for President Trump. But some people in right-wing media have pushed the dangerous idea that it was all an FBI plot.
FBI operatives were organizing the attack on the Capitol.
There is absolutely no evidence whatsoever that this was some kind of false flag event staged by the Democrats or the FBI. What would you say to people who say January 6th was the biggest attack on American democracy since the Civil War?
Absolute rubbish.
But amid all the denial and deflection, I met one Trump supporter who said it was important to be real about what happened on that day. What do you think of the Trump supporters that stormed the Capitol?
Oh, my. You talk about misfound feelings. Seeing the folks from my side of the state that were there, and they're not the part of the campaign that we would like to have.
Do you think some Trump supporters that say it's Antifa, it's Black Lives Matter, that they know that that's bullshit, but they just don't want to admit it's easier to blame someone else?
Everyone is afraid to, take the blame. It's that simple.
All right. Well, there you go. And I think that's a good place to just head over to my interview. I'm going to just skip the news dump because it's almost 2 a.m. It's been a long one. And I think we covered a lot there other than, should mention the Theranos founder, Elizabeth Holmes, was found guilty of criminal fraud. Devin Nunes formally resigned from Congress. The Israeli ambassadors have gone after Emma Watson for sharing pro-Palestine stance on Instagram. These are some of the stories I put in my notes throughout the day. TikTok has banned Judicial Watch right-wing crazy President Tom Fitton for claiming multiple community guideline violations. Patton Oswalt is defending his friendship with Dave Chappelle amid a backlash, saying he'll always disagree with Chappelle's transgender stance, but they've been friends for 34 years. President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris will be speaking on the anniversary of the Capitol insurrection. Unfortunately, I think former or disgraced President Trump is also going to be speaking in trying to get attention for it, obviously, and raise money from it. But I want to get to my guest right now, so skip the traditional news dump. I'll use your jingle for tomorrow, Pete Coe. But I'm really excited I got to have a conversation with Capitol Police Officer Harry Dunn, who was, of course, at the Capitol on January 6th, testified in front of Congress. He was selected to by the January 6th Select Committee, testified over the summer. He was the only black officer that testified before the committee. He's a 37-year-old guy. I think he's on the force 13 years, grew up in Prince George's County. He's a father of a 10-year-old girl who he loves, and we talked a little bit about that. But before I get to the interview, I just want to play for you this clip of Jamie Raskin talking about Harry Dunn's testimony at the impeachment hearings for Donald Trump. And you'll also hear a little music behind it because I grabbed this, I think, off the New York Times podcast. Harry Dunn, by the way, is on Twitter. It would be huge if you let him know that you heard him here on the show. He's at Libra Dunn, D-U-N-N. All right, here is that Jamie Raskin clip, and then we head into Harry Dunn.
One of our Capitol officers who defended us that day was a longtime veteran of our force. For several hours straight, as the marauders punched and kicked and mauled and spit upon and hit officers with baseball bats and fire extinguishers, cursed the cops, and stormed our Capitol, he defended us, and he lived every minute of his oath of office. And afterwards, overwhelmed by emotion, he broke down in the rotunda. And he cried for 15 minutes. And he shouted out, "I got called an N-word 15 times today." And then he recorded, "I sat down with one of my buddies, another black guy, and tears just started streaming down my face. And I said, 'What the F, man? Is this America?
And now my conversation with Capitol Police Officer, American hero, Harry Dunn. All right, well, I've got him, Officer Harry Dunn. What an honor and a pleasure to have you on the podcast, and I'm very excited to meet you virtual through a screen, and cheers.
Thanks, Pete. Cheers to you, man. Thank you for having me on, bud. I appreciate it.
It's kind of weird because it feels like I know you, and I think that to some extent, a lot of America knows you, and your life must be so much different this year than it was a year ago before you were kind of a more anonymous Capitol Police officer.
Yeah, fun fact, actually, when Jamie Raskin read that clip, he had no idea who I was. I contacted him after I didn't see the impeachment hearing. A few of my friends that I've confided in told them that I was the officer behind that quote. Say, yo, Jamie Raskin quoted you during the impeachment trial. And I'm like, wait, I was confused at first because when he quoted me, how do they know who I am? So I was worried that my name was out there. And then they're like, no, they don't know who you are. They just said this quote. So I called his office and I let them know that, hey, I'm the guy that Jamie Raskin quoted. And he happens to be my congressman, who I'm a constituent. And it was like, oh, my gosh. So me and Congressman Raskin bonded over that. He had me over in his office for lunch. And what a great man he is. Just a great human being, a great person. To go through what he went through with losing his son and to still show up and have that strength that he had to, do his diligence to his country. What an amazing man he is. So yeah, I'm honored to call him my congressman. So
yeah, I interviewed him last year, and it was before he lost his son. But either way, just got to know him just a little bit, and he's a super inspiring guy. And as I was preparing to talk to you, I heard that floor speech, and I actually reached back out to his people asking him to join me again. So anyway, very excited to talk to you. Just wanted to start by getting to know you a little bit. I mean, I feel like there's a lot out there about you, but I still have a lot of questions and excited to talk to you. For example, you grew up in the D.C. suburbs, Maryland, that right?
Maryland, Prince George's County. It's a very populous county. It's the Beltway area.
Right.
It referred to the DMV, D.C., Maryland, Virginia area, the Beltway, PG County.
So when did you decide to become a police officer, and why the Capitol Police? Did you go to college?
Man, I went to college. At James Madison University. I played football. I played on the national championship team. 2004, we beat Montana in the national championship game. That was my junior year. I had an opportunity to play in the Canadian Football League for the Montreal Alouettes. Some injuries kind of prevented that from being more than what it should have been, in my opinion, And, after football, trying out with a bunch of different teams, bouncing around, having my agent say, hey, this team's interested, this team, on just a tryout kind of thing, but nothing was ever guaranteed. I was like, you know what, I'm ready to get my life started. Let's start a career. I guess football is over and done with. So, I went to a couple career fairs, and one of the career fairs I happened to go to, Capitol Police was there represented. And, even as a young kid, I was just like, just the idea of being a cop is cool. Young kids, they see the flashing lights, they see the handcuffs, they see the gun, the badge. You're like, oh, this is cool. Just as a kid. So maybe as a child, maybe that was ingrained in me. And then realizing the type of person that I am, that I like to help people, that I don't ever feel like any moment's too big for me. So being a Capitol Police officer and growing up in the DC area, you take the Capitol for granted. I've seen it my whole life. But I've never had gone there until I started working there.
Wow.
But it's just an honor to actually work there also. I make some saying I made up. I don't even know how much sense it makes, but it's I got a type A personality with a type B heart. So I love the opportunity to help people out. So
that's funny. Yeah. Why? But I mean, so that makes sense as to why you went Capitol Police. Was there ever you were at the job fair, but did you ever think, well, maybe I should join the Washington D.C. police force, and then maybe just help me understand the difference in your jurisdiction? Because what is a Capitol Police officer? Where does your jurisdiction end and the D.C. police officer's jurisdiction begin?
Gotcha. So they're overlapping jurisdictions as far as, who does what kind of thing. As you saw on January 6th, they were so instrumental in saving the democracy just as much as Capitol Police were. A lot of people just give Capitol Police all this credit and everything, which I receive, and thank you. It's deserved. I got a lot of brave coworkers that I work with equally. That praise needs to go to Metropolitan Police Department because they saved our ass, just to put it bluntly. Yeah, I applied for a couple of different organizations at the same time, but Capitol Police, they got back to me first, and I don't regret it. It's a federal law enforcement agency versus, the local municipalities versus, your counties, your sheriffs, your state troopers and stuff like that. Capitol Police is under the federal government, which is federal government oversees the Capitol Police. So the jurisdiction is a little different and responsibilities are a little different, but the same mission to keep people safe and protect democracy, I guess.
How long were you on the Capitol Police? Were you a Capitol Police officer before, I guess, last year, before January 6th?
I actually, November of this year, I started my 14th year.
Okay.
So I was at right around 13 at that time.
So what's a typical day like? What are you normally responsible for doing? And also, like, what relationships, if any, do you have, if you're even allowed, with the people and that you're protecting?
It's kind of cool because first of all, one of the things that a police officer of any agency will tell you is no day is like, there's no ordinary day. There's no routine day. There's no routine traffic stops. None of that stuff is routine because everything could play out differently. Yeah, January 6th, to our knowledge, at the time before January 6th happened, was supposed to be a regular First Amendment protest, which I've been around hundreds, maybe even 1,000 of them in my career. But, our mission is to keep the members safe, keep the people, the visitors, the staff safe at the Capitol complex so Congress can fulfill their congressional responsibilities in a safe environment. That is our mission. That is our priority. And I keep going back to January 6th because we're so close to it. But if you look at our mission and what happened on January 6th, it was a success because as ugly as it was still successful because not one congressman or senator or congressman or woman, senator was hurt, and they were able to go back and do their congressional duty late that night after the building was secure. So, as ugly as it was, I guess you got to look at the positives in it, and we succeeded in that. And as far as the relationships go, they're congressmen and women and senators, they're normal people just like we are.
Sure.
A lot of them get hammered in the media, and sometimes all they feel like the only friends that they have are just our smiling faces, the Capitol Police, when they see us when we were working. And I've been very fortunate to meet some very, very great individuals that work and have worked in the past at the Capitol as elected officials.
How much did your role change? I mean, you testified in front of Congress, one of, I think, 4 police officers that day. That was a massive, massive day of coverage. I'm sure it must be surreal for you to even think about it. You testified you read like a 15-minute statement that was extremely impactful for anybody who watched it or heard it. You've been on TV on I think all the networks. You've been interviewed by all the biggest names in media. The New York Times has also interviewed you, I think, twice now. You are present on social media. You're no longer anonymous, but you're still a Capitol Police officer, and you must get recognized every day. What is that like? What do people say? How are you allowed to talk to them? I mean, if I want a picture with you, can I go take a picture with Harry Dunn, or you have to I'm working?
I keep the responsibility of my job at the forefront because that's what I'm supposed to do. Everything that I'm doing as far as me as a private citizen, Harry Dunn, not Officer Harry Dunn, just private citizen Harry Dunn, is done in my free time, in my spare time.
Yeah, I mean, for example, today we were supposed to talk earlier, and then you were like, "Oh, I have to go be to my job as a police officer," and I was like, really mad about your priorities.
But but that's the thing. Like, people need to do things for the right reason, and this is an important moment in our country's history. And if I have this voice, this platform, which I'm blessed and fortunate to have, I'm going to use it. I've always been, people that know me know, that's just Harry being Harry. It's just a lot more people are listening to him now. I like to say, without even trying to sound braggy, is just a stand-up kind of person, and just what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong. I don't give a damn who you are. Do right and be a good person. That's pretty much what I live by.
It seems, given your situation, we might not agree on what it means to be a good person and what it means to do right, given what happened last year, January 6th, which you were right at the center of. So just though, do people recognize you and say stuff to you every single day?
Sometimes, yes. People recognize me. Yeah.
What's been the best, the greatest honor since you've gone through that horrible day? And I know you have to relive it. And I'm going to get serious with you, but
I think honestly, just being able to testify before Congress, like, think about that, man. Like, not only am I just a public servant, but like, they called on me for I'm there to serve, but they actually chose me. They wanted to hear from me for help to save the country, I guess. I don't know if that's even the right thing, but what that was an honor. I was honored to do that. I was honored to be able to speak and tell my story. I was able to incorporate some of my friends' stories who shared with me what they went through, that didn't want to talk out publicly about what they went through. I was happy to be able to share their stories and just give them a voice. So yeah, I think that was probably the biggest honor, period, man.
Well, have you received a lot more positive attention and respect and thank yous than you have criticism or even threats? I mean, on the day you testified and have talked about how you were literally called the N-word, you were attacked, you were abused. And since then, people have a lot of different opinions on what happened that day and on the police officers that day. And I definitely want to get into talking to you about the difference of reaction with the law enforcement community and if there's any conflict there for you. But how generally have you been perceived by strangers, writing you letters, following you on and saying things on social media, on Twitter? I want to think it's a lot more good and positive than negative.
So think about this. Like, generally it has been overwhelmingly much better, but we're humans, right? And we focus on the negative so much more than we do the positive. If somebody says, "Hey, Harry, Pete, y'all just a bunch of fat, bald guys with beards." Like, wait a minute. But that's one guy. But then you get 20, 30 people saying how amazing you are, blah, blah, blah. But that one comment is going to stick with you, right? Like, it's going to stick with you.
Harry, Harry, if I can call you Harry, I am a stand-up. I'm a stand-up comedian. So if I had 300 or 1,000 people laughing, if one guy has his arms crossed, I'm focused on him. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Exactly. So it's human nature, and not even just like you said as a comedian. Just it's human nature. We tend to focus on the negative. However, through mental health, right? Mental health. Let's talk about it. Very important. Therapy has been huge for me. It's helping me to. And you know what? Crazy thing, you could get mental health help just by talking about your problems or having something said to you that resonates with you so well.
Sure.
Will Smith of all people, like, he's a great guy, but he said something like in a viral video. And I'm sure he heard it somewhere, but you surround yourself with people that fan your flames, right? Flames need oxygen to breathe and stuff. So you give people that surround yourself with that to help your flames burn bright. And that's what I'm focusing on, man. These other people, the detractors, the hell with y'all, man. But no, just how cool, like, mental health is huge. And it's man, talking with my therapist and also reading Will Smith quotes have helped me through this, man, and having a tight social network, people that support you. My support circle is huge, and my family is huge too. So I appreciate that, and that helps me get through it.
Well, I do want to just I think that I'm sure a lot of people, a lot of nice things have been said. And I'm sure people have said this to you, but I think one of the most important things that you've done in the aftermath and as a reaction has been vulnerable. You've been vulnerable. You've showed a wide range of emotions, from anger to sadness, even to fear. And I think that I always try to play that up because for men to do that, period, is something that we really need to do. For a 6'7" black, we could talk about race in terms of vulnerability and culture. But I mean, for a 6'7" black man who's a police officer to be vulnerable, to show emotion, to talk about how there are ghosts that haunt him from that day, like that alone is probably for who am I to say, but one of the most important contributions you will have been made to this country is how vulnerable you have been publicly. I applaud that and thank you for it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that just helps me be who I am when you don't have anything to hide, right? And you can be transparent. That I think that makes you more powerful because it's nothing that anybody can say that can hurt you. Now, people, like I said, they use their words to hurt me. They call me the N-word, something that hurts. They call me a sellout. They call me a fake cop. It bothers me, but none of it's really true. Like, so the true stuff, like you be honest with the truth. All right, boom. See, I was just quoting Will Smith for mental health. Yep. I'm about to quote freaking Eminem for mental health, right? Remember on 8 Mile, at the last rap battle, he raps about all the stuff, the insults that the person is going to say about him.
Yeah.
And he takes the power away from it. And then at the end, the dude has nothing left to say. You take the power from it and you give it to yourself. Like, I'm not letting anybody have power over me. Like, you say what you want. Sure, it may hurt a little bit, but you're not going to have power over me, man.
I completely that resonates with me. I mean, but I didn't realize, and I'm kind of joking, but I didn't realize large men realize that. Small guys figure that out real quick. You can't hurt me with your words because I got to be ready and be nimble and run my mouth. But big guys like you don't need that. You can just smash, Hulk, smash.
You know what? I know you said you weren't joking, but I'm very fortunate. We had a lot of people that were physically hurt on January 6th. Injuries, Brian Sicknick, who died the day after. If January 6th didn't happen, Brian Sicknick would still be alive. They said he wasn't killed or whatever. If January 6th didn't happen, Brian would still be here. So I say that I'm very fortunate, this big guy, and maybe I attribute my size to me not getting my ass whooped. I got words tossed at me because those words were used as weapons too. But I don't believe that. I do believe that me not being hurt that day had a huge thing to do with my size.
Yeah.
So I guess it's a gift and a curse, right?
I guess. But did anybody even? You weren't physically attacked by anyone.
I got sprayed a couple of times, pushed, shoved, grabbed, but I wasn't beaten with flagpoles like my coworkers were. I wasn't punched. I wasn't, a lot of my coworkers were, and they sustained brutal injuries. Some of them are still out to this day, a year later, on physical injuries. So those guys need to be held accountable, the people that hurt them.
Here we are a year later. Let's kind of get into it. And you've done a lot of interviews. You testified in front of Congress, but I'm guessing, and I'm somewhat hesitant to ask you this because I don't want to, have you relive trauma, but I think it's an important question for you to share with people. I know you've talked about this. How often do you relive that day, and what specifically do you relive? And if you don't want to answer that because it triggers too much, then I get it. But I think it's important.
That's a fair question. But I think about this, man. Like, I go to work in the Capitol every day. That's where the attack took place. Somebody broke into your home, that room right behind you. And
I work in a shed.
But if something traumatic happened to you there, you would try to take control over it, but you're reminded of it daily when you walk in, even subliminally. Something may trigger you. And I don't necessarily, you hear the word trigger and you think of it as necessarily bad. I don't necessarily mean a bad thing, but just a reminder. PTSD doesn't necessarily mean violent flashbacks. It could just be remembering something that you went through that was traumatic.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why therapy is so important, because it helps you take control of that thing. So yeah, I do have memories that day. And honestly, a lot of it is just visualizing my coworkers and the horrors that they went through. Maybe about 2 months ago, there was a documentary that came out on 4 Hours at the Capitol or something like that. And even watching that months after January 6th, it was something new that I saw. It was new footage. It was new seeing some of my coworkers in different lights that kind of made me angry and hurt for them. Because another thing, you're right. I've talked and done interviews. I testified, but there's so many people that haven't. I didn't do anything by myself. I did so much with everybody else. Those guys, those men and women that I fought with, those guys are heroes. You know, everybody just happens to know my name and my face.
You define hero in every possible way. You can be modest if you want. I won't allow for it on this show.
I appreciate it. I accept it. I appreciate it. But I'm not alone. Like, there are so many.
Sure.
You know, there's so many men and women that I work with daily that are the epitome of everything y'all are saying that I am. So.
Well, I cannot wait to meet you and buy a drink or a steak or whatever you want if that's ever in the card. I mean, I think a lot of people would feel that way. But here's a question from a listener when I said to folks I was going to interview you. So this isn't my question. Take it however you want. This is from Joe. Does Harry feel betrayed by other law enforcement who have not openly commented or condemned the insurrection and being attacked? Does he feel that race is playing a role in him not being heralded as a hero versus a small-town cop saving a kitty in a rose bush?
That's a great question. The first part I'll talk about, do I feel betrayed by people not speaking out? No, I don't. I've talked with several of my coworkers. I've encouraged them to talk out, but for some of them, that's not something they want to do for several reasons. Their families, you know, you open yourself up to this. Everybody knows who the hell you are now, and that's not what people do. That's not what some people want, and I don't blame them at all. But no, I don't feel betrayed by people. People are allowed, and that's another thing. People are allowed to have personal views and stuff. If you're denying facts, then I can't have a conversation with you. I'm not going to waste my breath. I'm not going to waste my brain cells. You're an idiot if you're denying these facts about what happened. But we can have opinions about stuff. But what happened?
Let me just interrupt you on that, because there are actual United States congressmen who are denying facts on that day, saying it was just a bunch of tourists.
And there you go. I'm not going to go back and forth with that, because facts are facts. You can't debate. I don't know if you saw it. I put this on Twitter. That opinions are just opinions until they're confirmed by facts. Then once they're confirmed by facts, it's no longer an opinion. So that's why I try to stay on topic. Let's talk about facts. My opinion is no more important than anybody else's opinion out there. So we're not going to debate opinions out there, because nobody ever wins. We're talking about facts right now. But to answer the other part of his question, do I think no? Maybe I'm being naive. Maybe some people will look at me like, well, yeah, right, of course. No, I don't think so. I don't believe that people are giving me my roses, so to speak. And I appreciate it.
Do you not feel like the people that were there that day were overwhelmingly straight up white supremacists? Do you not feel that way?
So all right. So I've been trying to figure out I've been trying to address it, because, like I said, I got called the N-word. My coworkers did. The EMTs that responded trying to help the people hurt were called the N-word. But I don't believe that event was based off of just race. Now, there were probably a lot of racists there, no question about it. But it was so much more about these people trying to destroy democracy, more so than trying to start this civil war, as far when it comes to race. Because who were they attacking? They weren't. How many black people are in Congress? Like, how many black people are? Black people aren't this majority in that building, at least, So, like, let's stay focused, because all that does is detract and take it away. They're trying to put the blame on something else, and now they're going to make it all about race. Nah. Now, while race is very prevalent about it, it absolutely is. Let's not, take race out of it, which we know it's bull, it's a lie. But even take race out of it, because that just gives them something. I call them whataboutisms. Like, people usually think, what about? No, all right, we'll take race out then. This is what happened, period. Black, white, doesn't matter. So
I don't think you can ever take race out of it, unfortunately.
You correct. When you're talking to people that are actually logical and will listen, sure. But you talk about talking to these other people?
Yeah.
Nah. Okay, take Grace out, buddy. All right, no problem.
I know I've already been talking to you for 30 minutes. I want to talk to you for 7 more hours. But so I guess I know I got to let you go, but I guess there's 2 more questions I definitely want to ask you. The most important one first, just to get to know you and the kind of guy you are, which is always what I want to try to do when I'm talking to folks, no matter what, on or off the air. You were asked a question about who you are at one point. Mm-hmm. And your answer was very enlightening. And you mentioned in another interview, I do my prep. And basically, your top, when you were asked who you are, I don't know if it was the New York Times report or whatever, you said you took a long beat.
I'm a father.
Yes, that's what you said. Your top priority is a father to your daughter. Is that right? One daughter?
Yeah.
How old is she?
Girl. She's 10 now.
Why is that your answer?
I'm responsible. Like, at my job, I'm responsible for people's safety. At my job, I'm responsible for her life, 24/7. That is my number one responsibility, my number one priority in this world. My job as a father will reflect the type of person that she grows up to be. And I believe, and do you have kids?
2 daughters.
It's such an amazing feeling looking at something saying, I created that. I'm responsible for that. Like, this is me. Like, people, how many times you heard people say, oh, not my responsibility, not my problem. You can't wipe your hands with that. So I want it to be the most perfect thing in this world and make sure that she has everything that she needs to be successful. And I'm responsible for her life. Anything wrong, Daddy, this is wrong. Daddy, this is wrong. That's wrong. What a great honor to be a parent. I'm honored to be a dad,
I think that the most important role you play as a parent, or the thing that I say the most every day is, shit, they're watching me. God damn it. They're watching me. And do you ever think, and if you don't mind, sharing if you want to, she must think that her dad is pretty special. Like, if you died tomorrow, you would have been considered one of the most important people on that day, certainly because of your testimony, which a lot of other people haven't been as courageous enough to do, much less you becoming so outspoken, not to mention just your service in general. What does your daughter think about that day and that her dad is Harry Dunn?
My daughter is 10 and wants the newest LOL dolls.
She has no idea who you are.
I tell you, bro. I was so honored to have the opportunity to go to the White House the day that the president signed in the Congressional Gold Medal bill, and my daughter was there with me. And I had to tell. We in the Oval Office, and I'm like, "Baby, smile! Like, we're about to take a picture with the president. What are you doing?" Like, all right. And then she's like looking around, and I got this great picture of the Vice President Harris giving her like a cookie.
Oh, really?
And it's so cool. And like, my daughter's more excited about the cookie than like the picture. I'm like, goodness gracious, girl! Like, come on.
Yeah, no idea, because she has no idea. Like, kids think whatever they're experiencing is normal, whether it's bad or good. It's like, yeah, this is just normal. And someday she's gonna be like, I cannot believe I didn't have a thoughtful conversation with the Vice President of the United States. But she's 10. She's a little girl. Like, what is she? Yeah. I mean, amazing.
But it's awesome though. But you're right though. She sees it. She's proud. I've been out with her a couple of times, and people come up to me and say, "Hey, your dad, that's your dad. You should be so proud of him." And she'll just be like, "Oh, I am." Like, and I'm like, so.
Well, I don't want to ask any. If you don't want to answer this, you don't have to. But I mean, are you married?
I'm divorced.
Wait a second. Are you a single man?
I'm a single man. Yeah.
What is it like?
Hey, dude, we've already had 30 minutes, bro. I need 30 more hours for that damn story.
I mean, when you meet a new woman, what?
Where do I start, bro? Where do I start, man? Honestly, bro. I do want to settle down again. I'm dealing with a lot now. I got a lot on my plate.
I'm sure.
And I'm just trying to learn how to this is going to be my new normal, I guess, and I have to learn how to adjust to that. And I'm still adjusting to it, to myself. It would be not fair at this moment to incorporate somebody else in that until I at least know what the hell I'm doing myself. So,
well, that's very, very thoughtful. You're a super thoughtful guy, and I hope that we can talk again. My last question to you is, what do you hope moving forward? I mean, you're going to stay there on the Capitol Police Force. I mean, your brother Fanone is taking off. He's like a CNN analyst now or some shit. Like, why not just go find fame and fortune and be a podcaster, a YouTuber, a famous commentator? You got all the credibility. You could have your own show at 8 o'clock on CNN.
I mean, that's kind of cool. I don't have any desire to work for any kind of network or anything. I don't have a desire for that. That's nothing my heart is in. My heart is in helping people. And if I can find a way to do that more effectively than I am now, then I'll entertain it. But I just like I like to be a vessel to help people and take up for the little guy, figuratively and literally speaking. So.
Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for your time, man. It's awesome to talk to you. I'm going to come down there as soon as this latest wave.
I tell you, man, it's crazy, right?
Did you get corona? Have you had it?
Yeah, I had it. I'm fortunate. Like, I'm lucky, I guess. I'm vaccinated. I believe in science and, wear a mask, do it, but whatever.
Yeah, well,
I'm fortunate.
Whenever it's safe to travel again, as soon as we're all going to get, I'm going to get it for the first time. I'm going to come down there just specifically to meet you. And,
well, good, man.
And I'm going to bring you a table.
Okay. Okay, fair enough.
This man is hold on a second. Let me take you down a notch.
Go.
Let me take you apart. This man is an American hero. He's a Capitol Police officer, defended democracy in the Capitol on January 6th, and he has a computer sitting on a patio table. He's got good bourbon, but we need to get him a nice table. He should have he should have the nicest table in America, and that's.
I'm good, man. I'm fine. I tell you what. When you come down here to visit, make sure you pack an extra liver because bourbon's on me, man.
No. That's not going to be the case. I'm gonna buy you. We will drink from the same bottle, and I'll buy you another bottle and leave it with you, and the table.
And the table.
And
hey, man, great talking to you, buddy.
And and then once I get real liquored up, I'm gonna try to fight you. I'm 5'7".
No, this will be fun now.
I'm 5'7", so I imagine the fight will mostly be your hand on my face, keeping a certain distance.
Easy there, little fella. Easy there. Just back up.
Just pick me up with one arm and toss me away. I keep coming back, though. I keep coming back. Officer Harry Dunn, what a pleasure and an honor to meet you and to have you join me. I'm so grateful for you. Thank you. And also thank you, Kristen Holly, who is a listener. And you and I had already reached out to you. I've been harassing you for a while, but she reminded you of me. And thank you, Kristen.
Kristen's great. Thank Kristen.
All right, man. Thank you. Well, there you go. There goes Harry Dunn. That was super special for me to be able to do, and hopefully you enjoyed it. There are several questions that I didn't get to ask him, or I didn't want to ask him until I gained more trust and his confidence. I'm looking forward to talking with him again and actually meeting up with him. I mean, questions like, why didn't you shoot all those people? Questions like, why wasn't there a different fight, a different situation? Why didn't you know? He's been asked and answered those questions in the past, and as we continue to talk, I'll talk more with him about it. But I like to build trust gradually and confidently with the people that join me here in the conversation so that we can have the most authentic conversations to share with you as I possibly can. And that's why hopefully you support the podcast with a paid subscription. If you haven't, go to standupwithpete.com right now. And that's just another reason or part of my style why I do what I do the way I do it. Hopefully you get that and appreciate it. I know you do. All right. Well, before I go, I do want to play for you a very funny new bit by comedian J.L. Couvan. Apparently, Donald Trump Jr. has gotten engaged to Kimberly Guilfoyle, and JL made a video of his Don Jr. impression. You should go click on it, watch it on YouTube. I'll include a link to that in the show notes. But here it is at the end of the show. I want to leave you with a laugh. JL Couvan as Don Jr.
So what's up, guys? It's Don Jr. and I'm like, you know how I like to stay tough, and I don't get emotional. Like my dad, I'm very tough. But today is, I would have to say, a top 10 day in the history of my life. I asked Kimberly to marry me, and she said, "Can I think about it?" And then I showed her my bank balance and what I stand to inherit, and she said yes. And it's like the most, it's like super, these are, by the way, these are strong Trump tears. These are not radical left, cancel culture tears. But even my dad was happy for me, and that was, if there's something that's going to get me, listen, if there's something that's going to get me, my energy powder is kicked in. If there's something that's going to get me like super excited, like super to the point where my lift starts coming back, it's when my dad, the coolest guy on the planet and still our president, when he just says like the coolest things to me. And he said, "Don't forget about prima nocte." He said he was instituting prima nocte, which I think is like a term with his lawyers, like for like a super cool prenup. So like Kimberly is not going to get my money if she doesn't act totally cool. And I warned Kimberly, I said, I got an ex-wife with 5 kids that I don't see. If I could leave her, don't think I can leave you if you start acting like not cool and stuff. So, I think it's just so awesome. Ivanka called me the Kendall Roy of the family. So I think that means she's happy for me. And like I said, my dad is going to hook Kimberly and me up with some, he said he's going to exercise prima nocte. So we're totally excited for that. We think that's going to be just so cool, like so cool. So sorry left. Sorry that I have this cool, hot chick, Kimberly, who's, the right amount of crazy and, wasn't so cool. And Gavin Newsom called and congratulated us because it was like, I know he was trying to just ruin the moment because he's handsome, but I'm so much cooler than you, Gavin.
All right, there you go, JL Copan. Follow him on Twitter. Go see him live. He's going to be in San Jose. Go check out his dates. JLCovan.com. I can't be bothered, JL, to go look it all up right now. But go watch him on YouTube. Go find him on the Cameo and all of the rest. That is all the time I've got to give you today on today's podcast. Sorry I didn't get 2 guests on today. I'm going to try to get Peter Coyote, I think I'm going to play for tomorrow's show, so look forward to that. I've got Dr. Aaron Carroll joining me this week, Professor Claire Potter, and who else? Who else should I be reaching out to for this week? I always want to hear from you. I would love to hear from you. Email me, standupwithpete@gmail.com. You can always call the voicemail, 209-STAND-UP is the phone number for that. Join us on the Discord platform if you are a stand-up community member, and if you're not, sign up now, standupwithpete.com. I'll talk to you tomorrow right here on Stand Up. John Carroll, sing us out, brother.
Stand up, stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up, they had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of a stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We gotta let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Where the money all went, it'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. Alright, we got to speak up, we got to reach up and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up, stand up, got to stand up. Ooh, come on, just stand up. Everybody got to stand up in the darkest hour. on, come